G'day everyone, my name's Nathan and I'd like to introduce you to my new YouTube series, Let's Give It a Crack. I chat to my friends, family and workmates all the time about trying out new and different things, and I often hear people say, "Oh, I'm too old to try and learn that now," or "I wish I was younger so I could have a go at that." But you know what? My opinion is you're never too old to learn new things. Sure, it might take more time for your muscles or body to recover after putting it under some stress. And yeah, maybe it does take you a little longer to learn some things as you get older. But that shouldn't stop you from spreading your wings and having a crack at trying out something new. So, what does learning something new look like? At a high level, picking up a new skill, regardless of what it is, plays out like you would expect it to, in what most people would refer to as the learning curve. Early on in the journey, you'll generally get the hang of the basics relatively quickly. As you move into the intermediate phase, you start to understand how the simple skills come together to create the bigger picture and begin to develop a fairly good idea of what's involved. But also, you begin to recognize how much more you need to learn to move on to the advanced and expert stages. As you move into the advanced phase, your time investment will need to increase. And this is where your passion for an activity directly influences how much time you spend doing it. You're working on perfecting your abilities and optimizing your skills. And as you'd expect, most people who love an activity will end up somewhere around here. Finally, the expert phase is inevitably a place where only the top few percent of the elite will fall into. And typically, you're committing a large part of your life to the activity at this point. Let's take chess as an example. To begin, you're learning what all the pieces are, their names, where they start, how they move around the board, and ultimately how to win the game. There's a fairly big progression on the learning curve here. You go from knowing nothing at all to being able to play a game of chess. As you move into the intermediate phase, you're probably going into games with an overarching plan. You understand how the different pieces work together, how to trade and sacrifice favorably, and responding to how your opponent is playing as well. Maybe you're even thinking a few moves ahead and have memorized a handful of well-known chess strategies. An advanced player has invested quite a bit more time, and by this stage they're experienced with a wide variety of strategies and recognizing what their opponents are doing as well. They're thinking more than a few moves ahead for both themselves and their opponent, and adapting their game dynamically as needed to improve their chances of success. A chess grandmaster lives, eats, and breathes chess, and they certainly qualify as an expert. They know almost everything there is to know about chess, and they're among a small percentage of players in the world who are the best in the world. My aim with the Let's Give It a Crack series is to land somewhere in the intermediate range of the curve, understanding that each activity is going to have its own nuances and learning challenges. But I expect that a 3-month commitment should hopefully be enough of an investment to progress to an intermediate level. I'm confident that by that stage you'll have enough experience and exposure to decide whether or not it's something you're keen to continue on with or not. After all, who knows what you might enjoy? Maybe you'll love something that you never thought you would. Now let's talk about my ground rules. What are some fundamental pillars that I would want to adhere to so that I can get the most out of each experience? Firstly, and probably the most important, is committing to spending at least an hour every day to doing the activity. Fundamentally, developing core skills and knowledge, muscle memory, and forming good habits takes time and practice. Committing some time every day will go a long way to improving in the activity. Next up, I want to make sure every activity has measurable results. I'm keen to be able to evaluate how the journey progresses for each activity I have a crack at, from beginner to hopefully at least intermediate. I recognise that some of the experiences are probably going to be challenging to wrap metrics around, but I think it's an important part of measuring my progress along the learning curve for each endeavour. My third ground rule relates to proper training and instruction. Look, while I admit that the series being called Let's Give It a Crack implies I'm just going to wing it, to get the most out of the venture, my plan is to get proper instruction, learn from other people's mistakes, and follow a proven method for progress and improvement. Where this results in regular training sessions with a cost, I'll keep a record of them. And this leads into the next ground rule: maintaining a reasonable budget. My hope is that people who stumble onto this series are inspired to try out some of these things along with me, and that means keeping within a price point that's realistic for most people, and this is very important. In the introduction for each new activity, I'll outline all of my upfront costs and do my best to estimate any ongoing costs I think I'm going to run into. Depending on how the series goes, I might incorporate a few out there activities to mix things up a bit. They might break the budget a little, or maybe a lot, we'll see. But for now, we'll just leave that as a stretch goal and see how things pan out. Last up is setting goals. For every activity, I'll set what I hope is realistic goals at the outset of the journey, and at the end, we'll see how close I manage to get. I'm almost certain this is going to be a mixed bag of success and failure, but at least I'll have something to work towards. So what is my schedule going to look like? Every Let's Give It a Crack season will be 3 months long. I'll open on day 0 with an introduction video providing a brief overview of the activity, outlining my measurable results, and defining my goals. I'll also walk through the list of everything I've brought to kick off and, if relevant, estimate any ongoing costs I expect to encounter over the next 3 months. After that, the plan is to provide weekly updates on my progress, chat about how things are going, discuss successes and failures, and talk about any significant events that may have happened during the week. From time to time, I might pop up additional episodes if anything interesting comes up between the normal weekly schedule. Finishing up, at the end of the 3-month period, we'll have a final episode summarising the experience and my overall thoughts and conclusions. I'll also walk through any measurable results and see how I went with hitting the goals I established for myself on day 0. To kick off the Let's Give It a Crack series, I'm going to open with a Get Fit season. I suspect, like quite a few people over the past couple of years, I've been pretty lazy and let my fitness level drop away significantly. So to get the most out of some of the upcoming activities I have planned, I'll be starting off by getting back into shape. I have quite a large list of activities to explore, and after the first couple, maybe I'll include a poll to pick the subsequent ones if people are keen to contribute in choosing what comes next. So, let's give it a crack. Smash those like and subscribe buttons and come along with me on my journey as I explore a whole new world of adventures and fun.